And it is 2:15, so I'm going to pass it over to Brian Husk, and he can go ahead and start a session.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's fun to be amongst like-minded folks who are interested in this topic, and also having come from an IT background, it's nice to be with the IT folks as well. My name is Brian Husk. I'm the Administrative Associate Director with the Master Science and Biotechnology program with the School of Medicine and Public Health. We launched in 2002, and we're a professional graduate degree that's mainly looks at working professionals in the biotech industry. I previously, before this part, how did I start in this role? When the program launched, I was the first ever officially hired university web manager at Western Michigan University back in the mid to late 90s, when the campus websites were still living in the basement of a central IT office and not in the communications marketing department. So that's how I got started. And so, as I was telling Mary and Marinaz, this is the first time in many years after like a 20+ year career at UW-Madison where I thought, wow, I finally have a topic that seems like interesting and enough and worth sharing with people. So the takeaway that I'm going to leave you with today is this resource doc. It's at the top of the chat window. What I tried to do is create an aggregate page full of links that I was hoping would be useful for people later. One of the things I've learned in 20 years on campus is that there is rarely ever one central source to go find the answer you're looking for. And if you think you've got a new idea or a new problem, you're probably not the only person who's experiencing or thinking this. And so a lot of what I've done in the last 5 years to solve this and address this issue is knock on doors and talk to people. And so I've put that information in the resource doc. So let's get started. The purpose of our program's website is really to connect with students, to showcase the degree and open lines of communication, and ultimately to compel people to apply for the degree. Just briefly about our website, it was sort of the primary calling card for our new program that we launched in 2002, and we hosted that in-house on our own local server for 18 years. Anybody's lived a long time somewhere, it's kind of hard to move out and transition, but that was necessary. And so what I'm kind of trying to tell you about is my story and experience going from like the idea of getting going in 2018 to moving out once, completely transitioning to the Whisk web, and then finally to the Do It shared hosting account that we use now. Again, the goals of our website, our program lives on its revenue. If we don't have students applying, we don't have any funding for our program. So our website's really mission critical in being able to generate leads and contacts that we can then work on and connect with moving towards admission, right? And then we have a lot of degree competition that we face, not just in person or regionally, but online and elsewhere across the country. So it's become a very important tool to our business. If this might not be new to you, if you're in marketing at all, but the marketing funnel is really this idea of the broad net and narrowing down to the actual application process. And folks that do academic recruiting are going to be familiar with this, like this idea of awareness and then creating interest in your audience from the person who's heard about your degree to the point where that person is thinking, maybe I should do this degree, maybe that would be worth applying for or doing. And then finally, stage 4, really the action. I've translated these into sort of in the domain of the web and web marketing and our website as web searching as being the awareness, like how do you first heard about our degree, and then interest, maybe submitting a form, like connect with the biotech program, talk to one of the directors. That's like stage 2. Then 3 is the interaction, being able to connect with people, to answer questions and create a dialogue, and then hopefully lead to folks applying for our program. So how do you drive traffic to your website? That creating awareness piece. really, really important for us over those 18 years in the locally hosted space. We were one of the first biotech degrees, master's degrees in the country. By being there sort of first, and over time, we had created an incredibly strong search engine optimization result. We were one of the first, if not the first, one of the first 2 or 3 results to come about. It was free. It was just the way it was when people typed in biotech graduate degrees or master's degrees. There's also a paid search approach, which we, only recently have we toyed with. And so that's not free. And so you have to really decide how much money do you want to spend? What's the investment worth, and why do that? The big question that I had in that process was, do these interact with each other in some fashion? Does the paid search impact your organic search engine results? And honestly, despite having sort of asked a lot of queried different parts of the campus elephant, really couldn't find an exact answer on this. It's kind of an interesting moot point. So how do we get prospective students to submit a form or reach out to us and begin this, basically become a lead generated prospective student? What we really look at then here are 2 different methods, right? There are multiple ways to get into that funnel, whether it's sort of in-person interactions, social media channels, through different, social network connections. But ultimately, I'm looking at right here, how does your website help develop that lead? In our current way, in our sort of open search engine result method, we began with, we're basically using a web form, right? Tell me more about your program. I'm interested in hearing more. Here's my name, here's my email, and you have permission to call me. Let's connect. When we transitioned from our locally hosted site to the free Whisk web, it seemed like the natural progression for us to move to. It was a campus supported community. It had a lot of basic tools, and it was really a helpful group to work with. But ultimately, it had some limitations that we outgrew, and we had to switch ultimately to the Do It Shared web hosting account that we use, the nickel account. It's a very affordable option, but it comes with some trade-offs in terms of like responsibility and support. I would say that one of the most useful pieces here was being able to sort of customize features and be able to install tools to help me solve problems that like search engine optimization software like Yoast Premium has been really, really helpful. And having the Google Sitekit do help strengthen your analytics and your awareness of how you appear in search engines. And I'll go into this in more detail in a little bit, how the factors that are important in deciding these things. But I'd also mention too that neither of these web hosting solutions has direct integration with Salesforce, which I'll tell you more about in just a little bit. And it's a pretty critical piece. On the paid search side, the method for the best practice technique in web marketing for a paid search, in which that means like a sponsored ad that's showing up, which in our case was oftentimes our competition pushing our top shelf organic search result down the page, which is really, we needed to compete with those paid search results ultimately. But the best technique for that is to have a landing page, and to have a landing page with no exit links. Really, the call to action is to submit a form. Here's some really cool content. I'm excited about this. This resonates with my interests. Now I want to give you my information and approval to reach out to me. You don't want to create backdoors for people to leave. You're wasting money. You're not going to get great results that way. That was something that I could not do in the free Whisk web platform. And so that was really the driver that moved us to the managing our own shared account. The other way to sort of have a form was to have an inline request for information directly within the Google search page. So you didn't even have to click to go to the landing page. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. And here's an overlay form if you want to do that. That was a feature that was implemented with our third-party vendor that we used. And I just don't think it was really effective ultimately, or worth the effort. But in red at the bottom, what is really important here is there is near zero campus help available here to sort of be the owner and sage guide for paid search Google ad configuration and moderating and configuring and managing that. And so we ultimately had to go to a third-party advertising agency for this assistance. And it was kind of frustrating because it seems like something that I know it's doable, and I hate having to pay someone thousands of dollars out of our revenue for something that I feel like maybe we could do ourselves, either in our program or we should have some sort of support on campus, right? So how do you automate lead engagement? So once you've gotten someone to say, hey, I'm interested in your program, I went through your website, I'm really interested in, and maybe applying. What are the methods that you can sort of connect with that person? Before you start an application, you want that person to be in the customer relation management system, Salesforce. So on campus, there are a couple different installations of this. There are also two different, very clear different audiences, one being the large undergraduate market for new students, and then also the graduate market, like our program. The Division of Continuing Studies and Professional Certificates and Professional Degrees and Certificates manages the Salesforce that I use, that installation. That is also tied to Eloqua. They were the first folks to really, do the proposal to get Salesforce and Eloqua on campus, if I'm not mistaken. So it is important to get into Salesforce those leads, because then you can trigger automated messages that can go around year-round, scheduled messages with conditional logic. They didn't get the first message, so now do a follow-up message, or they did open it and they looked at it, give them a different sort of communication. It's a really powerful tool for managing automated email campaigns, but then also sort of tracking and recording your interactions with these potential applicants. And then after an application is started, that data goes from Salesforce into the application review, which is the online graduate school application, which is also then scheduled to be replaced by Slate coming up in spring 2024. So a little wrinkle in that. Again, I'm speaking primarily from a graduate degree approach. I can't say much about the undergraduate recruitment process, except it must be big, right? And I think there's a more common application in place. It's different from the way the graduate school app works. So I bring this up because there's a lot of information and then like problems and solutions that I had to work through over these different stages of implementation of this website. And it really revealed some service gaps that I think the campus, it's funny, I just attended a gap analysis session. And so here are some gaps. And I think this is based on my experience. I would say, look, I can't be the only person who thinks this would be useful and important. I would love to see some expertise on campus be a source where you could say, hey, I need to run a Google ad from this date to that date. Here are the parameters and the audience that I'd like to reach. How do we go about doing that? Can you help me get this started? Either configure it as an outsourced service on campus, or just being able to say, okay, I can help you set this up, and then you can manage this after you go. But I would say, what's frustrating is it's just complicated enough where Google has so many different tools and platforms that relate to each other, that have to be set up right, that it was something that we ultimately had to outsource to Vendy, the continuing studies partner for this, and out of La Crosse, and they were fine, but it was costing $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year to implement that solution, and I would say ultimately it's like we did it because we had to be there in that space. We had to have paid advertising. It didn't even lead us to the best or the most applicants, but we still need this service. The other piece for me, I'd like to advocate is getting our campus WordPress site offerings integrated with Salesforce. It's doable, but it's just hasn't been a priority between the two different groups that sort of administer this. I know that DoIT's been really engaged more with DCS and sort of partnering support with Eloqua. And so that's a positive sign. I have seen, though, also that there are examples where Salesforce does tie to a program's website. Personally, I think when students go, prospective students go to look for information about a degree, they should be looking at the college or the school or the degree program's homepage. That's the way it's been for us for many, many years. It's where we know our audience and our content the best, and we really know how to connect with our people the best. And that's where I want people to go on campus, not necessarily the guide, which is sort of an institutional placeholder, and it's important, serves a function, but this is really, our website is really where we want people to go. And I would love to have that tied into Salesforce, so then I don't have to manually transfer Gravity Form information into Salesforce. So other considerations, right, more broadly, are just the campus search engine optimization expertise. I found it fascinating. I was terrified to move our domain from one IP address that we've had for 18 years to a different IP address in fear that our search engine results would drop. And they did. And no matter how much I talked to people and got advice and got recommendations for everything, we had to sort of, we start over and claw back, and then even claw back again when we went from the free Whisk Web to the DoIT web search or the web hosting. And so there are techniques, I would say, there are some really useful tools like Yoast Premium and things that you do to maximize your score for search engine optimization do matter. And they really do create improvements in your outcomes. It is tricky though with Google search. It's a tool that they want everyone to use, but they don't tell you how it's done. So in some ways it's a guessing game, but it does not mean that it wouldn't still be useful to have some sort of source, whether it's a community of practice that talks about this. There's a lot of value in doing more with that here on campus. I've already talked about Salesforce and I've already talked about Google Ads. I think it'll be interesting to see how the next sort of third-party product for the application system at the graduate school, what the features are in that product, and then how will we integrate those, or how can they be integrated with our digital marketing tools like Salesforce and Eloqua. And then I would add on artificial intelligence is going to really impact, I think, search engines. There's already an article in the resource page that I found that was kind of interesting how Google's already toying with a new platform for search engine results based on artificial intelligence and search history. And it's only going to get more serious, right, for all of us. So again, those are my slides. I did it pretty quick. That's a lot of information. I would like to acknowledge the professional degrees and certificates group out of DCS, the digital marketing team, Salesforce and Eloqua support teams, and then DoIT's both their free Whisk Web group and their paid web hosting team and their marketing automation teams. Those people were great. No one had the full knowledge of everything that I was out to go ask, when I'd come with questions, but the support I got was really fantastic from all along the line and was really helpful. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Just go ahead and unmute. And feel free to turn on your cameras. It's more fun to talk to a face than a name.
I have a question. My camera is not showing for whatever reason, but
Sure.
if this is without not within the scope of your presentation, feel free to just tell me no. But since it's on this doc that you shared,
Yeah.
I'm curious if you are aware of what resources exist on campus around Google Analytics and getting support in switching from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4?
Yeah, so I would probably steer you to the Whisk Web team. Matt Goins, I think is how you say his last name. He's been a real he runs sort of a monthly lunch and learn. And that topic has come up, sort of giving everyone a heads up that if you're using Google Analytics, the universal to 4, there's some resources that he had put together, and there are probably even some recorded YouTube videos about that. I have done that already. But I've been using Google Analytics for quite a long time, so I was kind of more. That was one of the sort of starting point places for me. It does get a little strange when you start managing properties. That's what a website is perceived as or defined as. That's where I would go first. It's to find that information. I think what you get is you get 2 different streams of information. You can get them going at the same time, and then you're just going to shut down one, the old one, the universal.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope that I go talk to the Whisk Web folks. They might have more specific advice and guidance.
Hey, Brian, I'll just jump in too. I just put an email in the chat. My colleague Christian Parrish just started a Google Analytics practitioners group on campus. Just
Cool.
started it. We just all met for the first time last week.
Nice.
But the GA4 Universal Analytics conversion came up in that meeting.
Yeah.
So email him. I put his email in the chat to join the group.
Yeah, and I'd love to join that too. Google Analytics is pretty cool. What I've liked based on my experience with Google Analytics and trying to strengthen our SEO placement and understand our audience. The little things that you do add up, and they do matter, and you can really sort of impact traffic, and you can use that information to help improve your website too. So if certain pages you want to get visited aren't getting visited, you can find that out, and you can then make changes to your website to improve that. But thanks for sharing that. That's cool. Any other questions at all? Like I said, there's a lot of information, a lot of different, like the Salesforce and the Eloqua stuff. It's tricky. Eloqua is complicated enough where, fortunately I have support there in the PDC side in our program that really help us get messages out and automate recruitment messages year round. But it is tricky to get into, and it's sort of now it's co-supported, I know, with Do It a bit. So I'm looking forward to that, having more help in that space.
Yeah, I'm curious to learn more about Salesforce as well. I'm at the School of Business, and we currently use like a in-house custom-built customer relationship management tool, but they're looking to replace it. I know Salesforce is one of the options.
Sure.
So if I understood right, you're using Salesforce right now, is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. Are you enjoying it? And you mentioned it connects with Eloqua well. Does it like kind of auto-generate email lists for Eloqua, and Eloqua sends back info?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And so once let's say there's a couple where it gets a little confusing is PDC also does a service for professional degrees, like sort of in the same space as many graduate degrees and degrees like the biotech degree, where they're really targeting an adult learner, professional learner, working professional. And so they, like some degrees don't have any expertise in web design or marketing. And so they welcome help from PDC, and they will create a landing page for your degree, and people go and find that. And then there's ways to promote it through PDC. and they have forms to get information about the PDC degree that you're interested in. I really, that's one avenue into getting to hearing about our degree and those kind of degrees. And once they submit a form on the PDC website, it automatically goes into Salesforce. But I know that in our case, we have more information and better information for our audience on our own website, right? And I'm sure that's the same with school of business, right? The question is then, what's the value of Salesforce? Well, it's better than an Excel spreadsheet and keeping track of, names and there's, we recruit 25 to 30 students per year per cohort. Any, big volume, you're going to need automation for that. And Salesforce is nice because then you can run campaign analysis and reports and sort of see, okay, we did an in-person visit on or there's a campaign that let's see who came in on that campaign, or who's interested in applying for fall 2024, and where are people at in that funnel, quote unquote. It's actually really useful. And I've had great support on the Division of Continuing Study side using Salesforce. It's probably been one of the most, the most useful tool. It's very complicated, but very useful from a student recruitment standpoint. Eloqua is a tool that feels like it does something that should be really easy. And it's a giant, ball of wax to unpack. And you really need help with that, I think, a lot of times. But they are integrated, right? So that your marketing communication in Eloqua to those Salesforce leads constantly cycle, and you can just kind of set it and forget it for a while. Other questions? This is good. Well, I'd like to hope that I'm not the only person on campus who has questions about, these challenges in this topic and trying to solve stuff. And so feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions and share whatever information I have. I'll definitely be signing up for the Google Analytics group. Sounds really cool. It's a good first step. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thanks for attending.
Thanks, Brian.